Hi, everybody. Charlie and Linda are here with you again for another Facebook Live.
Hello.
And the topic today is well-being and how we can boost our well-being and how we can maintain our well-being. So everybody wants to feel happy. And they sometimes believe that there are some people who just got the genetic code and they're lucked into being happy. But we're from the school of thought that you earn your way in. And certainly there is a genetic component, but the people who study this say that your genes are only 50%, maybe not even that much, and that so much more has to do with the choices that we make, the beliefs that we have, the attitudes that we have. So that's the malleable part. They say that's 40%. That's a very large portion. And only 10% has to do with the circumstances of our life. So no matter what the circumstances of our life are, and we may be living in some kind of a stressful situation, maybe medical, maybe financial, maybe a relationship, there are sometimes periods of our life that are very demanding, that we can still do those behaviors, make those choices, cultivate those attitudes that will up-level our well-being. And I want to define the term. It's similar to happiness, but not identical. There's some overlap there. Happiness is usually associated with pleasure, and that's fleeting. That's temporary. But well-being isn't so much of a high as it's a deep. And so that's more anchored and grounded in our experience, particularly when we choose those behaviors and diligently, consistently practice those practices that give rise to the well-being. So we're going to give you some examples. I always like to start with my very favorite, and that's gratitude. And the people who study positive psychology about happiness, they all talk about gratitude, how important it is to cultivate the attitude of gratitude so that we're not looking at what we don't have, we look at what we do have. We don't look at who we haven't evolved into yet. We look at who we have evolved into so far and the potential and the energy and the commitment to be more. And no matter what's going on in their life, and there may be darkness in our life from time to time, that we can cultivate this attitude of living in appreciation and gratitude. And I love what the positive psychology people say: when you keep a gratitude journal, you get a joy jolt. You get an immediate up level of feeling good and having that sense of well-being once you concentrate on that which is abundant in your life.
Yes, gratitude is a good one to start with. What I really love about gratitude is that no matter what's going on in your life, it's always, without exception, possible to find something or some things in your life that you feel grateful for. Doesn't mean that you go into denial about, the tough stuff that's happening right now. But it does mean that you can put things in perspective and you can remember that even on dark days, even in difficult times, it's not all terrible. There are some redeeming, positive aspects and things in your life that you feel grateful for. So to hold them both. So the other one that I'd like to mention,
yes,
is what I think. These aren't necessarily in order of importance, although I do think this one needs to be either at the top or very close to the top. And that is a sense of responsibility. That basically each one of us is responsible, not the events of our life, not the circumstances, not the people, not those things. Those are just content in our lives. But we are responsible for seeing to it that we are bringing well-being into our lives, that it's our job. It's not our partner's job. It's not our mother's job. It's not our boss's job. It's not our kid's job. It's not our neighbor's. It's our job to see to it that we are acting in ways that are bringing and promoting greater well-being.
That's right. Because how happy we are, how much we thrive, and how much well-being we have in our life is very much a choice. And it's a commitment that we make. So as we're going through some of the practices that will boost your well-being, you might want to be thinking in terms of, oh, I think I'm good in that one. I think I do live in gratitude. There may be others that you do not feel that you're as strong in. Those represent your growing edge. So you can use this handy little measure where you have a 0 for your level of well-being. You know, I'm totally in the toilet, I'm despairing, I'm hopeless, I'm depressed. And the 10 would be, man, I've never had such well-being in my life. I'm glad to be alive. Life is good to me. I am blessed. And anything in between. Because if you take on these practices, you can expect that whatever your score is will move. If you're already at a 10, you'll have to make a bigger scale. I'd like to mention one that's been important to me. I tend to be a little bit on the workaholic side and a little bit on the hyper-responsible side and on the serious side. And Charlie, thank you very much for teaching me about the importance of play. The practice of play in our life. Some people have the misguided notion that play is just for kids. And kids are great at it. We can learn a lot. In fact, the kids could teach us how to play more. So if you have children, if you have grandchildren, if you have people who are young at heart and keep the young boy and the young girl alive in them, no matter what their age is, they will be good playmates for you. And when you leave the world of responsibility temporarily, it is the most responsible thing you can do is to fill up your soul tank and establish your well-being by finding the things that are fun for you to do and play more.
Well, this next one is one that I think can be applied in any time in our life, in any aspect of our life. And it's something that we really do well to cultivate more of. And that is presence. Mm-hmm. Because if you're not present, then there's nobody there to enjoy the experience. So, you might wonder, well, why wouldn't I want to be more present? And that's because the experience that you are present to when you do show up isn't always something that's pleasurable. And the experience is whatever it is. Mm-hmm. So when we cultivate the habit of being present, of really showing up and checking in and being receptive to what's happening within us and around us, rather than judging it or resisting it, then we're going to have to take whatever it is that's there. And so a lot of us who haven't particularly looked forward to being present with things that are not comfortable, maybe they provoke discomfort or distress or disappointment, or they remind us of things that we had stuffed away, mm-hmm. Then there's a tendency to not be present. And, that can show up as just kind of spacing out or being distracted or doing things that take us away from this moment, away from this experience. So if you really want to experience a deep level of fulfillment and well-being in your life, you've got to be willing to take the risk that sometimes there will be things there that are not so much fun to experience. But if we can learn how to be present with them, one of the things that you notice is, and this is one of my favorite sayings, that this too shall pass.
Mm-hmm. Tell
And
me
that's-
about the casino, the sign in the casino.
Yeah, you must be present to win.
I love that.
Or if you buy a raffle ticket, it might say on the raffle ticket, you must be present to win. So when they call the drawing, you better be present.
Mm-hmm.
So that applies to all aspects of life.
There are a couple of good books about being present, back from the old days, Ram Dass, Be Here Now, and more recently, Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now. Both of those books made a huge splash when they hit the public. They sold millions of copies for good reason. A lot of people notice that they're not fully present for their life, where life is going on in the moment. So there's another one that's related to presence, and that's about worry, about make a committed effort to let go of worry. It's not irresponsible. It's all right to be concerned, but worry has so much to do with something that might happen in the future. And if we can recognize that a lot of the things that we worry about never come to pass, and when they come to pass, if we've been worrying about them, it doesn't necessarily position us any better to deal with them when they happen. To be responsible, to be concerned, but not to worry and live in the future, to be present in the now.
I want to say something about worry because quite a few of us have that one to contend with. It's
not you.
Not so much. Not that much. I mean, I've got my other issues. Worry's not
we
a big
all have
one.
ours.
In fact, some people like you might think that I should worry more.
No.
But worry is actually an attempt to maintain the illusion of control.
Yeah.
And in some ways, that doesn't make a lot of sense. But when you think about it, what am I doing when I'm worrying? I'm anticipating a future outcome that I have fear may come about. And I may also feel powerless or helpless to do anything about it. It might seem like this is going to happen, or this is inevitable, or there's not much I can do about it. But what I can do, what I can always do, is worry about it. And so when I'm worried, it kind of promotes the illusion that, well, I am doing something about it. I'm thinking about it. I'm concerned about it. I'm preparing myself for it. And a certain amount of that is useful. Mm-hmm. Worry is when we get obsessively caught in that cycle of continually not being able to disengage from that circular thinking that keeps reinforcing those fears and anxieties. And there's a time where concern becomes worry. Concern is fine. It's responsible. It's realistic. When it goes over the edge into worry, then you're going to be diminishing your well-being and without really gaining anything. So, like Linda said, just let it go. Easier said than done.
Right.
But if you have that awareness that you really are willing to risk putting the worry aside, at least temporarily, then it becomes more possible.
That's in the category of responsible self-care, compassionate self-care. And this is something that we run into with clients and students that we work with over the years, that they need to up-level their self-care. It can show up in so many different ways. Just how you speak to yourself in your own mind, not to talk mean to yourself, to speak up to the inner critic that may be shaming you or blaming you or judging you or criticizing you. It's often in taking good care of the body, being willing to give yourself enough time to exercise, and the exercise that you enjoy, not the have-to, duty, obligation kind, but to do the things that are pleasant. Because going for a walk, going for a hike may be really enjoyable, maybe more so than being inside and being in the gym or lifting weights. To honor the body, to honor yourself, and tune in and listen to what it is that are your needs, to know what your needs are, and to take responsibility for meeting those needs, whatever they are. Maybe it's for friendship. Maybe it's for being with your friends more. Maybe it's for being with family more. Maybe it's for being in nature more. Maybe it's for being in the hot tub more. But whatever it is that you feel that you need, that you know what they are, and that you're giving yourself plentiful helpings when you tune in, that you hold yourself in high regard, that you make a conscious choice to hold yourself in high regard and hold yourself as worthy and deserving of having your needs met, and then take responsibility for seeing to it that they are met, whatever they are.
Yeah, and I want to really make a distinction here between taking responsibility for having your needs met and being the one who has to meet all of them.
Right.
Because some of our needs are dependent upon other people. For instance, we do have needs for connection. We have needs for being engaged in relationship. We have needs to feel validated and supported. So that doesn't mean that it's other people's job to provide all that. And it also doesn't mean that we need to do all that by ourselves. But in between those two extremes, there is, again, going back to responsibility, to be responsible for having our needs met. So some of those interpersonal needs will require other people. And that doesn't mean that it's their job to come into our life and recognize that we have those needs and then to fulfill them. But it means that we have to participate in our lives, in our relationships, in ways that invite people to want to be with us. Mm-hmm. We have to show up in those relationships in ways that are sufficiently compelling and inviting so that people will want to reciprocate. They'll want to be engaged with us. In other words, they've got to feel that there's something in it for them. There's something that they're getting out of this too. And there's nothing wrong with that, because ultimately all of us are motivated by some degree of self-interest. No problem with that, unless we take it to the extreme and we don't have any regard or concern about other people's well-being or other people's fulfillment, and we just are completely focused on ourselves. So to be able to be both an invitation to people that will attract them and encourage them to want to be connected with us, and at the same time to be responsible in our own lives.
So here's another practice, and it's the practice of risking. Now, some people are not hitting the higher levels of well-being, and they're not really clear what that's about. But they notice there's sort of a staleness or a vague feeling of fatigue or boredom. Is this all there is? And they aren't quite putting their finger on it, that they haven't been taking risks. They've come to live a life that's too heavily weighted on the comfort and security and predictability. And it's taken the juice out of their life. And so to be thinking about what it is that we dreamed about when we were younger, what it is that was in our vision, that we may have lowered our expectations, that we may have thought that ship's already sailed and, that opportunity passed me by, and to revive that interest and to feel the longing for it, to have the courage to desire a bigger life, a richer life, a fuller life. We're not encouraging reckless, wild abandon, not that kind of risking, but taking calculated risks, because all the people who have been practicing these behaviors and these practices for many years report in their old age that they're still really lit up about life and experience a deep level of well-being because it never gets old. Do you know they're always on the edge of discovery, learning new things, reading new books, taking new classes, taking chances, meeting new people. So that may be just the thing that would give a shot in the arm to your well-being.
That wise, now aging poet Bob Dylan once said, said a lot of things. This is one of my favorite things that he said, that he who isn't busy being born is busy dying. He said that in one of his songs. And it's never too late. You're never too old or too young to be busy being born, giving birth to the experiences in your life that have yet to be born, that you have yet to fully experience those aspects of our life. We may not be able to, do it exactly the way we thought we would want to do it in our fantasies as a 12-year-old. We may not be that professional sports player. We may not become the president of the United States, although, well, we won't go into that. We may not be a professional dancer, but we can acknowledge and become aware of what some of those dreams were, what those dreams may still be, what the experience is that we want to have in our lives, and to see if we can create that experience, perhaps in a different form than we imagined it might be in 40 or 50 years ago, but that we can have that experience. And to, no matter what shape our body is in, there are ways in which we can creatively, once we identify what the experience is, as opposed to the form that we think it needs to take, there are ways in which we can bring that more fully into our lives. And that absolutely will enhance our sense of well-being.
Here's another one that's extremely important for me and my well-being. And I think that this is extremely important for most people, to have a sense of belonging. And so sometimes it's a piece of work to find our people, to find our tribe. Some people are blessed to have family members that they really enjoy, that they feel like they hit the jackpot with mom and dad, with sister and brother, with cousins, aunt and uncles, grandparents. And some of us didn't get the jackpot family. We need to go find our family of choice. And we sometimes have to weed through a lot of people until we find our flock, to find our pack. And when we have people who we can be ourselves with, who we feel we can be authentic and real with, who we feel that they are our confidants, that we don't have to bring an image to the relationship, that we can reveal who we really are with our magnificence and our wildest dreams and our grandest visions and our mistakes and our failures and our flaws and our deficiencies. That's really something. In the United States, there's so much emphasis on independence that people don't feel properly networked. A lot of people in our culture don't feel like they have even one, not even one confidant that they could turn to in their time of need, that they could turn to if they really were troubled and having difficulty, that they would have to keep an image up. I feel sad when I think about those large numbers of people, millions of people. Some of these people are dying of loneliness, slowly dying, even maybe suicidal. So if you are one of those people who hasn't risked getting out there to find your flock and risking showing who you are and paying attention to the people in your life who dig you and value you and want to know you, see if you could take that a little bit deeper. I'm a big fan of men's groups and women's groups. I think that they can be so important when the common denominator that everybody agrees to is let's be real and authentic with each other.
Well, that's so important, Linda, what you're referring to here about authenticity, because if we're going through life behind a mask, and I'm not saying that it's never appropriate to put on a mask depending upon the circumstances or the situation, but some of us get so lost behind the mask that we forget that that's not who we are. And the problem with a mask, I mean, there's many, but one of the biggest problems with it is that it is although it's insulating us from undesired consequences like judgment from others or rejection from others, it's also insulating us from connection with others. And if we don't express who we are with authenticity, and we just put that image out behind that mask throughout our lives, and sometimes even with people with whom we're very close, then we don't ever feel that who we are is actually being accepted, or being loved, or being honored, or being appreciated, or being valued. All of that goes to the mask. It doesn't go to the essence of who we are that's behind that. So the willingness to take off that mask as much as we can at times in which we feel that it's responsible and safe and realistic to do that. And that allows us to experience more direct contact with people and allows us to receive, to really feel that we are not something that we're putting out there, but that who we are is receiving that love, that appreciation, that presence, that quality of connection that we all need in order to really thrive.
I want to cover one more. I
Yeah.
realize that we're
Yeah.
getting towards the end of our time together, but there's one that I feel is overlooked by a lot of people. I include myself in that group in the past, thank goodness not now. And it has boosted my well-being tremendously, and that's creative expression. I feel that we all have a need for creative expression. To the degree that we project our creative artist onto another person and say, isn't that nice that they write that beautiful poetry, or that they paint, they draw, they sculpt. But we all have a creative artist in us. It may be buried and we may not be accessing it. And if we look for it, we will find it. It may just be how we decorate our house, or where we plant those tulips in the garden. Maybe it's going to be the creative way we write in our journal. Maybe other people won't see it, but we can express our true inner core self and make beauty in the world. And I think that that's part of our contribution. It gives meaning. It's our unique gift to give in the world, and it will definitely boost well-being. So we're getting towards the end of our time. We just want to remind you that we've got 3 free ebooks. You're welcome to come to our website, give your email, and the free ebooks will show up at in your mail. And we want to tell you what the topic is for next week. We're talking about radical authenticity. And that's one of the ways to boost well-being. So we felt that it deserved a whole half-hour session on Facebook Live.
All right. Well, go out there and create an extraordinary week, and hope to see you next week.
All the best.